Jong-un has agreed to halt missile and nuclear tests ahead of his in-person meeting with President Trump.
We could be on the cusp, frankly, of the most significant diplomatic achievement since the Marshall Plan post-World War II.
The Democratic National Committee filed a lawsuit today against the Russian government, the Trump campaign, and the WikiLeaks organization.
To come and make up these excuses about why Democrats lost, I think is pathetic. They had a bad message. They had a bad candidate. They're the ones that colluded with the Russians.
Fox News confirming that Comey is under investigation for leaking the memos.
Comey has hurt himself and raised very serious questions about his ethics and his behavior and perhaps his criminal liability.
It looks like I will not be able to be home for your birthday, but I hope this makes up for me not coming home. Daddy!
Straight to a Fox News alert this morning. Major progress with North Korea, the communist country putting its missile testing on hold and closing one of its nuclear sites.
President Trump calling it, quote, big progress, tweeting that he's looking forward to his high-stakes face-to-face meeting with the dictator in North Korea, Kim Jong-un.
The two expected to talk further about the isolated kingdom getting rid of its nukes altogether. According to state television, the testing is stopped effective immediately. The rogue nation also vowing to engage in conversations with its neighbors to secure peace in the Korean Peninsula.
Good morning to all of you.
Big news day.
Big news day. It's great to have Ed and Todd on the couch. And there is a lot of news to get to. First and foremost, North Korea. This might be the most significant foreign policy since we have seen from Nixon. Remember Nixon going to China?
Absolutely.
It reminds me a little bit of that time in our country's history. We don't know ultimately where this will lead, but this is a huge moment in history. This is good news for President Trump and more evidence that having tough talk actually might mean something.
Yeah, and I think Kim Jong-un clearly has been worried about the unpredictability of this president and the fact that he means business, something that Kim Jong-un was not afraid about going back to the Obama days.
And so many people have put this as the #1 foreign policy issue facing America right now. Many of those same people said, President Trump, nobody's going to be able to fix this. It appears that President Trump has gotten one step closer. We're going to bring in Jim Hansen right now, President, Security Studies. He served in the U.S. Army Special Forces, conducted counterterrorism operations. Jim, how big of a development is this?
It's huge. I mean, there's no question this is unprecedented. The bottom line is no one was expecting anything good to come of President Trump's fiery rhetoric, except people who understand that diplomacy works better with a credible threat of military force backing it up. That's the reality. You have to have that iron fist in a velvet glove, and guess what? It's worked. It's brought Kim to the table in ways none of President Trump's predecessors were able to do.
Yeah, you look at just this past year. I mean, late last year, remember, we had those tight sanctions put on North Korea. And then China crossed their own red line. They stopped oil and gas from going into North Korea. Then, of course, you had the Olympics, where North and South Korea were working together. And then Trump publicly announcing that he would be willing to meet with Kim Jong-un. You look at all the events that have played out, and then most recently, Mike Pompeo going over there himself. What is the thing that sticks out to you as making North Korea open their eyes to say, you know, maybe we do need to work with the Western world?
Well, I think there's no question that the sanctions and increasing the pressure on the regime had an effect. But I think what actually sealed the deal was the belief by Kim Jong-un that he could lose that hermit kingdom, that President Trump, if he did not denuclearize, was willing to take the step of taking out his nuclear capabilities. That's something I don't think any of the previous presidents had managed to convince their Korean counterpart to actually believe.
And, Jim, the president's critics must be baffled because you rewind the tape about a year, and when the president was talking tough with North Korea, you remember, he talked about fire and fury. It became the title of that highly critical book, the idea that the president was out of control and couldn't put together a diplomatic achievement like this. And then I read the New York Times this morning, and right away this morning they say Mr. Kim made no mention in his latest remarks of dismantling the nuclear weapons and long-range missiles North Korea already has, meaning they're already trying to find something wrong with this. Kim Jong-un is saying we're stopping testing. Big deal. And the president's critics already trying to find some reason to say it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I was reliably informed by all of these people that President Trump's rhetoric was going to cause a nuclear war. Now that the exact opposite is happening, as you say, they're quibbling and they're tap dancing and trying to back away. Here's what actually happened. North Korea has agreed to talk about denuclearization. They've said they'll do it. They're talking to South Korea about ending a half-century-old war, and they've told the South Koreans that none of this is even tied to the U.S. leaving the peninsula. So we have to take a very trust but verify and a very low level of trust at that approach to this. But this is a major opportunity, and this is a win for President Trump's policies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jim Henson live for us this morning. Great insight. Jim, thank you. And it also sort of underscores the need to get Mike Pompeo confirmed immediately. He's the one that went there to North Korea, set all this in motion. Got to get it done.
Well, this is big news this morning. But there's a lot going on in Washington as well. James Comey, as we have seen throughout the week, making his media tour about his book. But there are a lot of questions now, Ed, about what he might have said under oath, whether or not he was always honest.
James Comey officially now under investigation. That's the other big news breaking overnight. The Justice Department Inspector General, we knew he was reviewing the FBI and the Justice Department's handling of the Clinton investigation, a whole bunch of other matters. But these Comey memos, the 7 memos targeting President Trump in their meetings and phone calls, it turns out the Wall Street Journal reporting first, Fox and others confirming that at least 2 of these memos had classified information. That now under investigation and really puts James Comey on defense because, remember, he testified under oath last year to Congress that in these memos, he went out of his way not to put classified information.
He said he avoided classified material in the memos so that they could be widely shared. These are memos, I like to call them his personal diary, because that's essentially what they are.
He went through his friend to leak them out, and it had classified information.
Right, so the president is tweeting about this, as you can imagine. He says James Comey illegally leaked classified documents to the press in order to generate a special counsel. Therefore, the special counsel will establish based on a legal act. Really, does anybody know what that means?
So really, right now, the question that everybody's wondering, did James Comey commit an illegal act? Keep in mind, you mentioned the July 2017 testimony in front of the Senate. The January 2017 memo that was leaked said the word secret on it. Now we're going to get into what does secret mean? What level of classification does secret mean? And if that is determined to be a significant level of classification, James Comey could be in trouble. Remember, James Comey and Andrew McCabe, not necessarily buddies over the course of the last 48 hours.
They used to be tied at the hip because they're number 1, number 2, and now they keep pointing fingers at each other, saying, well, I didn't know about that. Well, I didn't know about that either.
Right. Here's why it really matters, though. James Comey wrote these memos and leaked them out in part to help build the case for a special counsel, which was named Robert Mueller, suggesting that maybe there was collusion, suggesting maybe there was obstruction of justice. Now, what the president's tweet is saying is, was that rotten fruit, basically?
Fruit of the poisonous tree, exactly.
There you go. You understand the legal term. And the bottom line is, does that mean that these memos with classified information, it may have been illegal for James Comey to leak them out there with that classified information? Is this now rotten fruit that led to the special counsel investigation? And the legal principle basically is, so if there's an illegal traffic stop and a police officer finds drugs in your glove compartment, there's a problem. They can't charge you. And so the president's tweet is clearly trying to delegitimize this.
But the irony of all of this, if the Mueller probe comes to an end and there are signals that might be slowing down a bit, you have Mueller telling the president that he's actually not a target in that case. He's a subject. But the irony that at the end of all of this, it could be McCabe, not McCabe, it could be, Andy McCabe that goes down.
Well, McCabe has a criminal referral for himself as well. By the way, also breaking is the fact that the DNC yesterday decided to sue the Trump campaign, sue Russia, and sue WikiLeaks. A lot of people scratching their head. Why now? What in the world is going on here?
Well, also, how do you even sue a country?
We're going to get to that.
That's a big question that I have. So here is the DNC chair, Tom Perez, on that lawsuit. Take a listen.
We want to send a very, very clear signal. If you want to mess with elections here, there are going to be consequences. We are raising the cost of your interference. we know that this administration is Putin's poodle, and so they're not going to do anything. So we will continue to act. If you want to do that, if you're going to punch us, we're going to punch back, and that's what this lawsuit is about. We are protecting our democracy. When you go after the right to vote, when you go after the institution of elections, that is the essence of our democracy. So this wasn't simply an attack on DNC. This was an attack on our democracy.
The phrase Putin's poodle sounds like a great band name, but seriously, we got to break this down. Russia, you can sue them all you want. They're never going to pay. No matter what your dad can make them do, they're never going to pay. Part two, you have a situation where WikiLeaks is really protected by the First Amendment. And oh, by the way, the collusion aspect, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got a special counsel going on right now trying to find collusion.
I think this is a sign that they're nervous, that this, as I said earlier, is coming to an end. And they're like, well, what do we have now? This comes across as very petty. It comes across as they're scrambling to keep this as a headline, keep this in the news, to find something there, to find some sort of collusion that happened, which, as far as we know, with this investigation, there still is no evidence of that. So
the Trump campaign is firing back, the re-election campaign, not the 2016 campaign.
They're the ones being sued. It's the campaign.
Right,
it's not President Trump himself.
So Brad Parscale, he's going to be the chief in 2020. This is a sham lawsuit, he tweeted, about a bogus Russian collusion claim filed by a desperate, dysfunctional, and nearly insolvent Democratic Party, with the Democrats' conspiracy theories against the president's campaign evaporating as quickly as the failing DNC's fundraising. They've sunk to a new low to raise money, especially among small donors who have abandoned them. And that's kind of an untold story there, which is that we're coming up on these midterms where the Democrats believe they have a head of steam, and yet financially the DNC has been in desperate shape. You would think if you're about to take out the president and his party, you'd be flush with cash. The DNC is not.
You know what it sounds like? This is their strategy to try and raise a little bit of dough. And we know how that works.
It's clear this is a fundraising strategy, or keep in mind it could be an attempt to depose people in a civil case where the bar much
Either way, good luck suing Russia. We'll see how that plays out. All right, I do want to bring you some other headlines we are following this morning, starting with a Fox News alert and a manhunt for a cold-blooded killer intensifying at this hour after he took off right before a jury found him guilty of murder. Verlaine Laguerre walking away during a lunch break at a courthouse in Atlanta. Laguerre had been free on bond. He and another man were convicted of shooting a 19-year-old college football player 50 times. Yikes. All right, well, throw out all romaine lettuce. Did you hear about this?
Yes.
That is the urgent warning from the CDC. You guys are so bad. This is an urgent warning from the CDC. The massive E. coli outbreak that started in Arizona, it just got bigger. So far, 53 people from coast to coast have gotten sick. The recall now covers all forms of romaine, including whole heads and hearts of romaine. Health officials also said avoid eating it at restaurants, at least for right now. We'll keep an eye on that one to see how it changes. Well, the world preparing to say a final goodbye to the Bush family matriarch. Former First Lady Barbara Bush will be laid to rest today during a private service in Houston. Several First families expected to attend the invitation-only funeral, including the Obamas, the Clintons, and First Lady Melania Trump. Hundreds lining up just to get a glimpse of Barbara Bush's rose-colored casket. Her husband, former President George H.W. Bush, greeting some of the mourners at the public viewing. Still ahead, we are bringing you live coverage as the world celebrates Barbara Bush's life. Of course, that is later this hour. We will be talking about Barbara Bush all day long. I've got my pearls on for her.
Great.
We all just love Barbara Bush, so more to come on that.
Wonderful tribute. All right.
Coming up, major breaking news all around, from the strikes in Syria to the protests in Gaza. There has been no shortage of news, but of course, the media still obsessing over one thing.
Adult film star Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Adult film star Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy. But is that resonating with the average American? We'll break it all down for you next.
Plus, the PC police, they're out in full force patrolling preschool. Why some kids can't have a best friend anymore.
No.
Yeah, really.
You guys are
You're not
my
gonna
best
believe it.
friends.
You're my best friend, Abby.
Pete's going to be so mad.
Adult film star Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Adult film star Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Porn star Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels.
Porn star Stormy Daniels.
Well, if one name has been on the minds of the media since mid-January, it has been Stormy Daniels. But has the media's obsessive coverage actually resonated with the average American?
Here to discuss is the host of Faith Nation on CBN, Jenna Browder. Jenna, thanks so much for being here. You say it does not resonate with the average American. Why do you say that?
Yeah, good morning. You know, the media's obsession with Stormy Daniels is really getting out of hand. So, there's a recent poll that shows, it's by Quinnipiac, it shows that 23% of Americans don't think this is an important issue. 9 out of 10 Republicans feel that way. And on top of that, independents, 80% feel that this is not an important issue. It shows the major disconnect between the mainstream media and middle America.
You know, you think about Stormy Daniels, most of us, none of us knew her name just a few months ago, and now it seems to be the topic. You turn on any channel during any sort of breaking news story, and it still continues to be Stormy Daniels. What do you think the obsession is? Is it just fun to talk about? Is it entertaining? Because as you said, this is clearly not impacting the way people are thinking about President Trump.
Sure. You know, I think there is some entertainment value to it, but at the end of the day, the American people, it's really not an issue that they care about. And, you know, they knew what they were getting when they elected Donald Trump in 2016. They realized he wasn't a squeaky clean poster boy. They realized he had a past, but they voted for him for policy, not necessarily personality. And he's delivered for them time and time again.
Yeah, Jen, I read a great line with regard to the Christian evangelicals. They want a bodyguard for their beliefs. They don't want a saint, and I found that to be extremely telling. And it seems that the evangelical numbers, the support for President Trump, is off the charts. Let's show you this poll right now. I believe we have the full screen for you. And you can see it right there, how it's rising right there. 39% in November 2015, 65% in August of 2016, 68% in January. But now, despite all this Stormy Daniels stuff, it has reached an all-time high, 75% last month. Why?
Yeah, it's because President Trump continues to deliver on issues that are really important to evangelicals. This is the judicial system. This is Israel and moving the U.S. embassy there. It's his stance on abortion, all of these really important issues. And they see him as a culture warrior, someone who is reestablishing and bringing back Judeo-Christian values to this country.
Where does this go? You see Stormy Daniels out there. She says she's not going anywhere. She's been at the courthouse with Michael Cohen just in the past week. How does this play out from here? Is this going to drag on into the midterms and then even to 2020?
You know, as it relates to the mainstream media, guys, I think they're going to keep hammering down on this. Yeah. And I don't know why. I mean, that it's showing that American people really just don't care about it. But I will say that the more they do stories about Stormy Daniels, about Russia, the more I think people in middle America will turn their back against them because they really just don't care. And they feel like these outlets are out to get the president.
Yeah, they care about issues that impact their lives every day, and Stormy Daniels isn't one of those. Jenna, great to have you with us this morning.
Thank you both.
All right, California's governor says the illegal immigration issue is blown out of proportion.
I think Fox News exploits this issue. We have criminals that do horrible things all the time. Which ones may be documented, which ones aren't, I'll be glad to look at that.
That was our own Griff Jenkins getting tough. Well, our next guest, they don't agree. They are part of the grassroots movement fighting the state's sanctuary policies and standing up for angel parents.
That was amazing work by Griff this week. Plus, James Comey's media blitz in full swing this week. But what do you, the voters, think? We have the dials you will only see right here on Fox and Friends Weekend.
I don't think he's medically unfit to be president. I think he's morally unfit to be president.
Some quick headlines now. International pop star and DJ Avicii has died at just 28 years old. The Swedish musician's lifeless body found in the Middle Eastern country of Oman. How he died still unclear at this hour. Avicii, best known for that song you just heard, Wake Me Up, and Levels. He's big in the electronic music scene. And an obsessive Taylor Swift fan getting way too comfortable after breaking into her home. A neighbor calling the cops after spotting Roger Alvarado climbing a fire escape outside the singer's New York City home and smashing through a window. He then took a shower, fell asleep until cops woke him up and arrested him. Swift was not home when it happened. Ed, over to you.
Bizarre. Meanwhile, a new report from the Department of Homeland Security shows that 89 gang members were released due to sanctuary policies in California last year. This, as the Democratic governor, Jerry Brown, continues to defend those policies.
I think Fox News exploits this issue. We have criminals that do horrible things all the time.
It's Fox's problem, apparently. Members of Fight Sanctuary State disagree. This week, they filed the Children, Family, and Community Protection Act ballot initiative with California. It would repeal SB 54 that you've heard a lot about and impose criminal penalties on officers and government officials who don't comply with ICE. Ben Bergquam and Agnes Givney join us from Fight Sanctuary State. Agnes lost her son, Ronald, when he was shot by an illegal immigrant way back in 2002. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Agnes, first of all, I can't even begin to imagine the pain you still feel so many years later. And I want to, first of all, express my sympathy about that. And I wonder, when you hear the governor blame this on Fox or downplay the idea that illegal immigration is really a problem in this country, how do you react?
I am very angry because we do have a real problem in California. Many thousands of Americans are being killed at the hands of criminal illegal aliens, and the governor is protecting them. I am outraged about this because in being a legal immigrant, I would expect my government to protect us American citizens and legal immigrants in this country, not the criminal illegals and those who broke our laws.
It seems like a reasonable proposition, Ben. So what is your group planning to do about all of this to push back against the governor?
Well, the citizens of California have had enough. We're calling it the citizen revolt has started. When you have politicians who've sworn an oath to protect the American citizen and they break that oath and they begin protecting criminals, criminal illegal aliens, something is really wrong. And so we're doing three very simple things. We're saying you cannot enact sanctuary policies, and if you do, you will be held accountable. There's criminal conduct and financial penalties for it. You also, as a business owner, you will not be held accountable for doing what citizens should be able to do, is work with ICE. And the last thing is getting rid of driver's licenses for illegals, which allows automatic voter registration in California. So we're saying three very simple things to put, but basically it's protecting American dreamers, American citizens, not criminal illegals.
Ben, I see your hat says Justice for Kate. I assume that's for Kate Steinle, of course, killed by an illegal immigrant. Agnes, your son's name?
Ronald Da Silva.
And what when you saw the Kate Steinle murder happen and you saw the illegal immigrant essentially get away with it, what went through your mind?
I cried. I literally cried, and I felt such a sense of helplessness and despair that what is the government doing to us? They are letting criminal illegal aliens get away with murder. Is that the message that the governor of California is sending to us, that criminal illegal aliens will be protected and citizens will not?
And a very powerful message, and the president is hearing you. He tweeted this week about all the gang members and said he was deeply frustrated with this, Ben. Last point from you about what you see happening next.
Well, you see it all across the country right now. We have it coming from the federal government, and God bless Donald Trump and the administration, Sessions, for coming in and filing the lawsuits. We support that. We support the cities and municipalities, the counties standing up and rejecting the sanctuary state. And now it's up to the citizens to stand up and join us in Fight Sanctuary State. It's, initiative process are a difficult process. They're a costly process. But we would invite everybody, whether you're in California or anywhere else in this country, if you believe in the rule of law, if you don't want to be an Agnes Givney or a Don Rosenberg or a Sabina Durden and lose your child, we'd ask you to join us.
Well, we certainly heard from Democratic Governor Jerry Brown this week. It's important to get your perspective as well. Ben, Agnes, we appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Meanwhile, a Fox News alert. Major progress with North Korea now agreeing to freeze its nuclear program. Could the rogue regime next release American detainees? They apparently promised that to the CIA director. A live report from Washington next. Plus, James Comey's media blitz continues, full swing this week. But what do the voters think about his comments? We have the dials you'll only see exclusively here. And Alan Dershowitz, Michelle Malkin, Mercedes Schlapp from the White House, Lee Greenwood, and our own Dana Perino. She's down in Houston. We'll hear from all of them live.
This is a collaborative, improvisational conversation about politics and life.
Everybody at the Five comes with a background and an expertise.
No one says news has to be boring.
No scripts,
Nothing.
People love the show because we make them think.
And at 5 o'clock, you get the hard stuff and we dissect it up top. And then at the end of the show, we give you a little dessert.
We're telling you what we think. And we are speaking, it turns out, for a lot of people.
Back with a Fox News alert we've been talking about all morning. North Korea striking a milder tone, reportedly willing to free 3 U.S. citizens.
The release will coincide with the highly anticipated summit between President Trump and dictator Kim Jong-un.
This as the rogue nation freezes its missile testing program. Jillian Turner live in our nation's capital with the breaking details unfolding at this hour. Jillian, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. In a dramatic about-face, Kim Jong-un has issued a statement. It says, in part, quote, under the proven condition of complete nuclear weapons, we no longer need any nuclear tests, mid-range and intercontinental ballistic rocket tests, and that the nuclear test site in the northern area has also completed its mission. Now, just hours ago, new reports surfaced that during Mike Pompeo's clandestine meeting with Kim over Easter, the dictator floated the possibility of releasing 3 long-held American detainees as part of the pending sit-down with President Trump. So this morning, all signs point to go for a Trump-Kim summit, and things are looking up for the Trump administration's plan to try and strike a deal that no American president has yet been able to successfully do. Now, all these developments come just 6 days before Kim is slated to meet with his South Korean counterpart, President Moon, and only weeks before his highly anticipated face-off with POTUS. This past week here in Washington, talk of North Korea was dominated by the politics surrounding CIA Director Mike Pompeo's pending confirmation as Secretary of State. The math's still out on that, but should he continue to produce results like the ones coming to light this morning, the tables on Capitol Hill may yet turn in his favor. Todd?
Yeah. I think you might be right about that. Jillian, thank you so much. Well, speaking of North Korea, the president addresses his upcoming summit with Kim Jong-un on Wednesday, but it wasn't the only big soundbite from the busy news week.
Yeah, Lee Carter is a pollster and partner with Ms. Lansky and Partners. She is one of the partners, I'm assuming, and she just put this week's biggest moments to...
She's the key partner.
She is the key partner to the dial test. Obviously, North Korea, over the course of the last 48 hours, is the big story.
It is.
And you polled us.
Yeah, we did. And you know what? The president is doing really, really well on North Korea across the board. This is his shining moment and has been really on foreign policy. Being tough is something that resonates.
Which is surprising because he's been so criticized for comments he's made. But let's play some of that.
I will be meeting with Kim Jong-un in the coming weeks to discuss the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Hopefully that meeting will be a great success, and we're looking forward to it. It would be a tremendous thing for North Korea and a tremendous thing for the world. We've never been in a position like this with that regime. If I think that it's a meeting that is not going to be fruitful, we're not going to go. If the meeting, when I'm there, is not fruitful, I will respectfully leave the meeting.
So that was from just this past Wednesday with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the press conference there. But some interesting words there about North Korea. How did the people respond?
The people responded really, really well. Republicans gave this an A+, independents a B, and even Democrats gave this a C. What they said is they like the president as being tough on national security, tough on North Korea, that he's going to have conversations, but he's going to walk away. He is, if it's not in our best interest, people buy that about him. And I'll tell you something, if the Democrats continue to obstruct on Pompeo, it's not going to play out well for them.
For Republicans to give him a C on anything shows he's doing well.
Yeah, there you go.
Jim Comey has been out there on the book tour. You're probably tired of him by now. Let's play a clip and talk about him.
Is Donald Trump unfit to be president?
Yes, but not in the way I often hear people talk about it. I don't buy the stuff about him being mentally incompetent or early stages of dementia. He strikes me as a person of above average intelligence who's tracking conversations and knows what's going on. I don't think he's medically unfit to be president. I think he's morally unfit to be president.
Even when he's praising the president, he slips in there. I know some people think he might have dementia, which was kind of a low blow to just slide in there.
Was.
What do people actually think about it?
So you can see that Democrats gave this a B, independents a C, and Republicans a D. Now, what strikes me the most is how independents reacted here. They were straight down the middle. There was almost no reaction at all by them. And when you looked in, and I dug deeper into the survey results, what they said, the number one thing that they said is, I don't know what to believe. Do I believe him, or is he here to sell books? I'm just not sure. These kinds of moments were somewhat more earnest than when he did some of the other interviews where he really went for some low blow jabs. But really, people in the middle are saying, like, I don't know who to trust. This is the former FBI director. Can I buy it?
Yeah.
And that C grade continues with your next soundbite, President Trump saying no one has been tougher on Russia than him. Take a listen.
There's been nobody tougher on Russia than President Donald Trump. Between building up the military, between creating tremendous, vast amounts of oil, we raised billions and billions of dollars extra in NATO. We had a very, very severe, we were talking about it a little while, fight in Syria recently, a month ago, between our troops and Russian troops, and that's very sad. But many people died in that fight. There has been nobody tougher than me.
That independent C line, that yellow line going straight
But also,
across.
you see Republicans and Democrats, they are the furthest apart when it comes to Russia.
That's right. They are absolutely polarized.
No surprise there.
No surprise
Shocker.
there. What is shocking to me is the independents, because as you guys might remember, throughout this whole time, for the last 3 years that we've been tracking this, independents have often been tracking with the president. And that's why Republicans have done so well. If I were a Republican and I was looking at this right now, I'd be concerned. I'd also be concerned if I was a Democrat, because they're assuming a great blue wave is coming, and it's not exactly like they're aligned. They're very disenfranchised. I don't know if disenfranchised goes to the polls, you know, turns out on election day.
And as you said, you need the independents. They're key.
There's no question about it.
We've got some fresh sound bites. You're going to come back in the 8 a.m. Eastern hour. We're going to measure it as well. So thanks for coming in, Lee.
Great to be here.
See you soon. All right, bring you some other headlines that we are following this morning. The FAA ordering emergency inspections for all airlines. Of course, after a Southwest plane engine exploded 30,000 feet in the air. The rare move specifically targeting fan blades on Boeing 737. And it comes just days after one broke midair, killing a woman who was nearly sucked out of the plane. It affects 352 engines here in the U.S. and 681 worldwide. That is a big move. And we may never know why a man shot and killed 2 sheriff's deputies at a restaurant in Florida. Authorities in Ocala say 58-year-old John Highnote casually walked inside, ambushing the deputies at point-blank range before taking his own life. Sergeant Noel Ramirez, a 7-year law enforcement veteran, leaves behind a wife and 2 children. Deputy Sheriff Taylor Lindsay serving on the force for 3 years. Well, still ahead, their boss, who calls his deputies his heroes. He will be joining us next hour in the show. You do not want to miss that. Also, the caravan packed with migrants hoping to get into the U.S. have reached the border. Some have already been turned away, while others are waiting for more backup to arrive to seek asylum. The caravan from Mexico initially consisted of 1,500 people, but most ditching that plan after President Trump called them out. The commander-in-chief also beefing up security, deploying the National Guard to protect the border. And an outraged mother is looking for a new preschool in Massachusetts after a term best friend is banned from her daughter's current school. Christine Hartwell says her 4-year-old Julia is heartbroken over that rule.
I want her to be able to express her thoughts and feelings in a healthy way, as children should.
Well, the school barring the phrase best friend because they say it makes other children feel excluded. So you know what, this morning, none of you are my best friends.
Yeah. No, everyone
I don't want
gets a
anyone to feel left
trophy.
out.
Everyone's a friend.
That's a friend.
Well,
Rick, you are always my best friend.
It's Pete. That's the problem.
Pete is the problem.
She's sad because Pete is gone. I know. All right. You're also sad because winter is not gone, right?
But when is it ending, Rick?
A little bit, maybe this weekend. Getting better, but I tell you what, not incredible still yet. Very chilly start this morning. It does warm up a little bit today. Today will be better than yesterday, at least across a lot of the east, and a lot of sunshine all across the east. So enjoy some sunny skies. It will feel a little bit better. A big storm here across the central part of the country. We've got very heavy rain falling, snow on the backside of that around the Denver area, eastern parts of Colorado. But we're going to see some pretty heavy rain here down across parts of central and east Texas, which is good news. West Texas, we still have plenty of drought going on. Same with Oklahoma, parts of Kansas. You saw all of the fires, especially across Oklahoma this week. Here's why this is going on. Windy conditions, again, unfortunately, are going to bring some more problems today. 55 in Amarillo. But take a look here. We'll get some more greens on this map. Take a look tomorrow, guys. 65 in Fargo. We will take that. How about that?
Oh, that is exciting.
57
Rick,
in Boston.
I see
Not
you
bad.
saw the red theme today. Good job.
I know. I actually
We're
saw
all in
that,
red
and
today.
I put that on so I could be like you guys.
All right, thanks, Rick.
Thanks for that.
All right, remember when the Broward County Sheriff said this after the Parkland shooting?
Make no mistake about it, America. The only one to blame for this incident is the killer himself.
Well, his own deputies feel a little bit differently. Could he soon be out of a job?
Plus, Democrats in one state have a new plan to protect students, they say. Replace armed officers with therapists? Really?
That'll do it.
That's an interesting idea. Good morning again. Some quick headlines of the Broward County Sheriff. You remember him, Scott Israel, who touted his own amazing leadership after the Parkland school shooting, facing a no-confidence vote. The union representing his deputies deciding whether or not he's fit to hold the position. And Tea Party groups targeted by the IRS will soon be eligible for compensation. The government agency under the Obama administration slapped with a lawsuit for being slow to approve conservative nonprofit groups. The settlement expected to be $3.5 million. The government will decide how much each nonprofit will receive.
All right, thank you, Ed. Well, a final goodbye to Barbara Bush. The beloved former First Lady will be laid to rest today during a private service in Houston.
And Adam Housley live in Houston, where the celebration of the Bush matriarch's incredible life will begin in just a couple of hours. Good morning, Adam.
Hi, Adam.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, we'll begin in a couple hours here, 11 o'clock local, noon Eastern, that will take place. You know, yesterday from 10 a.m. to midnight, they had thousands come through here to pay their final respects, including her husband himself, who came through with his daughter, Dorothy. A bit of a surprise as he came to pay his respects and then stayed to greet well-wishers who came through really by the thousands that began at 10 a.m. And the last group came through, we're told, at 11:50 last night. So they were right on time to start, right on time to finish. As for today's events, there are 1,500 guests expected for the private invite-only funeral here at St. Martin's, which is the nation's largest Episcopal church. Some of the guests will include Melania Trump, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Barack and Michelle Obama, all attending as well. And as for those who came yesterday, they say that they came because they were so impressed by the First Lady. Take a look.
Barbara Bush was just the greatest woman in my opinion. She was our shining star.
Pay our respects to a woman who influenced many lives, myself, my wife, our family.
We just came out to support her and to let the Bush family know that, you know, we're here for them and that we support them.
That support again came by the thousands. Today, the eulogy will be given by her son, Jeb Bush, longtime friend Susan Baker, wife of former Secretary of State James Baker, John Meacham, a historian who wrote the 2015 bio on her husband, George H.W. Bush. And then once it's completed here, guys, the procession will go to College Station, Texas, which is where Texas A&M is located, where the Bush Library is located. There'll be a private burial there and she'll be laid to rest later this afternoon. Back to you guys in New York.
Adam Housley live for us there in Texas. Powerfully emotional day. And when you saw President Bush shaking the hands of the mourners, that really just cuts right at your heart.
Unbelievable. Quite a list of guests, no surprise. She was such a wonderful woman. All right, well, coming up on the show, the DNC suing Russia, the Trump campaign, and WikiLeaks over alleged election interference. But even some Democrats are not on board with it. We're going to discuss that straight ahead.
Plus, Democrats in one state have a new plan. At least they claim it's a good plan to protect students. Replace armed officers with therapists. Is that really a good idea? We'll debate it coming up. Illinois Democrats are pushing a new bill. You won't believe this one. It would reward schools that replace armed officers with therapists and social workers.
Here to tell us about it, Illinois School Resource Officer and former president of the Illinois School Resource Officer Association, Deputy Kip Heinley. Deputy, thanks for being here. And it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not saying we don't want extra mental health in schools. We're saying we want both armed security officers and mental health in schools, correct?
Yes, I mean, we deal with mental health issues quite often at school, and I work very well with my guidance counselors, the school psychologist, the school social worker, and I agree there needs to be more of those inside the school. But I think pulling SROs out of school is the first line of defense against violence and attacks is the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, and in fact, we want to be fair and give a direct quote from the bill itself. It says selected school districts must reallocate funding to other evidence-based and promising practices designed to promote school safety and healthy learning environments, including increased use of school psychologists, social workers, and other mental and behavioral health specialists. So, as you say, Deputy, That's fine. Let's bring in those elements as well. But when you're on the front lines of this big problem in this country, isn't it important to have sort of an all-of-the-above strategy?
Yes, unfortunately, if they take SROs out of the schools, what happens if there is a school shooting? What happens if there is a school stabbing? In some schools, you're probably looking at 10 to 15 minutes response time by the police because they're so rural. Even schools within the city, if you pull SROs out, you're still looking at a couple-minute response time, and those couple minutes, when an SRO on site could be engaging the threat, and they're not there, you're looking at people getting injured, possibly people getting killed, and stuff like that.
All right, and Deputy, thanks so much for being here. When you can't put a value on the price of a human, you really can't put a value on the price of a child. They need to do all of the above, like Ed said. Sir, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Deputy.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, a big show on tap. Here we go. You ready? Alan Dershowitz, Michelle Malkin, Mercedes Schlapp, Lee Greenwood.
In the same show?
In the same show, Ed Henry, as well. Dana Perino, all here live when Fox and Friends on a Saturday morning returns.